Good morning. Good to be with you again this morning and continuing to build on the 4 pillars of a healthy Christian business leader. The pillars are healthy relationships, biblical financial values, biblical spirituality, and balanced living. And this week we are focusing on pillar number 1, which is healthy relationships. And as we focus on healthy relationships, this is the month that we celebrate Father's Day, and so I figured we'd focus on the relationship that we have with our dad. And so I called it Dad Stuff. And yesterday we talked about honoring Dad. Today's topic is going to be Dad's the Man. And so I'm standing outside of Good Life Fitness, and I know there's all kinds of gyms around where people love to go and work out, and certainly again, men often will go to work out and in essence show how strong they are, and of course make themselves stronger and healthier in the process, which is a good thing to do. Well, I'm sure you've all heard the stories of the kids that brag about their father, and those stories can just go from the fantastic to the impossible. Probably one of my favorites is the story of the kids bragging about their dad and how strong he is. And one kid said, the Sea of Galilee, and kids said, yeah, we know about the Sea of Galilee. He said, well, my dad swam that. And another kid said, well, that's no big deal. The Mediterranean Sea? Yeah. Well, my dad dug that. And then the third kid says, yeah, well, the Dead Sea? Yeah, we know the Dead Sea. Well, my dad killed it. Kids can create these kind of fantastic stories about how big and how strong their dad is. Of course, as great as it is that kids admire their dad and think that their dad is the man, usually that does change over time. When we are younger, we think that dad is like the superhero, and then as we get older, we realize that he's not as strong as we thought he was. And then when we get into our teenage years, we also start to even question whether he's as smart as we thought he was. And fortunately, maybe unfortunately at first, but when we get to that place where we start to be embarrassed by our dad, and we don't think that he's really that smart. Fortunately, though, by the time we get to our mid-20s, usually, somewhere around there, we start to realize that Dad may have more wisdom than we want to give him credit for. And so if you're a dad and you're in that stage where your kids are in their mid to late teens, and they don't think that you have much to offer them, don't be discouraged. Continue to be a blessing, continue to encourage them, continue to walk with them and pray with them and talk with them and play with them as well. And we'll talk about that this week. But you know what? Because there will come a day when that will change. I think about Jacob. Jacob and his 12 sons. There's all kinds of dads in the Bible, but I think about Jacob and his 12 sons, and he must have experienced some of this with his 12 sons. His boys were all very close in age. A lot of people don't realize this, but from his oldest son down to Joseph, so the first 11 boys and 1 daughter, were all born within a time span of about 6.5 years. And if you carefully read through Genesis, you'll be able to discover that. Because again, it has to do with the fact that he had 2 wives and 2 servants, and he had children with all 4 of them. And anyways, if you do the calculation, you find out that in 6.5 years, he had 12 children. And that's kind of crazy, but it works. Anyways, Joseph certainly had a the idea that his dad was a superhero mentality, because Joseph was out of all the children, he was Jacob's favorite son. And so that's a significant thing that we see there. He was his favorite son, and I just can't imagine that Joseph would not have thought that his dad walked on water. I mean, all of his brothers had to work, but Joseph did not. Joseph is the one that got that beautiful coat. The brothers did not. And so you just kind of know that there was that kind of relationship. But you do wonder, though, about Jacob and his sons and their journey through this process, because I wonder how they felt after Jacob came back in the next morning after he had that wrestling match, and now he comes in and he's got this limp, and every step he takes, it's like, okay, this man is becoming a weaker man. Also, I wonder what they thought when he came to meet his brother after he had tricked his brother out of his birthright, and after he had stolen the blessing from his brother, and had fled and been away for about 21 years, maybe 22 years by this point. And he comes back and he's going to meet his brother for the very first time. And what does he do? He puts his wife and his children ahead of him, and he hides behind them. You kind of wonder, like, what would these boys have thought about him at that point in time? Now, none of us have perfect dads. And as a dad, I have to confess that I was not a perfect father either. Because there is no such thing as a perfect father except God our Father. And there is no other father who is perfect. But one of the best things that we can do is, as a dad, one of the best things that we can do is to love our children. And then for us as children, to love and respect our fathers. We talked about honoring them yesterday. And so I encourage you today, as you go about your day, ask yourself, am I taking time to show my dad that I love him? Why not take time today to make a phone call, to talk to your dad and say, Dad, I love you, and I respect you. May we know that Dad is not the man, but he is a man. He's not perfect. He's not a superhero, but he is your father, whom God has blessed you with. And we looked at that yesterday, that fathers are a glory to their children. May the Lord bless you. You have a good day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.